the format. Authors' names are inverted. You always put their last name first and give the last name and initials for all authors. And that's what drives me nuts. I think that's the biggest rookie mistake I see is people don't list the author's last name. So here's an example of a reference, what it looks like. Notice they're different for magazines and books. The magazine has, the article has the authors, the year, the title of article, then the title of periodical in italics, the volume number, and the page numbers. The book has the author, the year of publication, then the title of the book is in italics, and then the location and the publisher. And those are really easy to do now because everything's automatically on Google. You can just press cite. And then this is an example of how to cite a website. You can also just Google that. That's all over the web for instructions. And these are just some examples of what a reference looks like. Again, remember, this is just kind of like wearing a suit to your job interview. Format these examples, and I'm not going to go into them in detail because you always can reference this lecture, reference your book, reference on the web. There's all kinds of ways to do APA style. Now, here's the important part. I wanted to make sure and explicitly address plagiarism because unfortunately, it seems to be a big problem in 380. And I have thought a lot about it, and I think that the reason is that people don't know what plagiarism is. So I'm going to define it for you. First of all, if the bottom line is if you use someone else's words, absolutely must be identified by a quotation marks and a citation with the page number. If you're direct quoting from somebody, you have to say that by the quotation mark and a citation with a page number. The next level down is if you're saying someone else's thoughts or a statement that is not general knowledge. So if I say something like, animals are very, very beneficial in the college classroom, that's sort of opinion because it hasn't really been scientifically established yet. So I might want to cite the article I read that in, which might be Yankura 2013, or a statement that is not general knowledge. So for example, 75% of the households in the United States have at least one pet. That is not general knowledge. Most people wouldn't know that. So I'd want to put a citation after that, and then that would be included in the reference list so people could find it. But so the next level is you're totally off the hook when you're talking about your own opinions, words, and thoughts. So you don't need a citation for those. And there's a lot of part of your paper where you're synthesizing information, so you don't need citations for those. But what you do definitely, because it can get you in big trouble if you don't, use citations and direct quotes when you're using someone else's words. That one you include the page number. Without the page number, just the citation part, that's author and year. When you do someone else's thoughts or a statement that is not general knowledge. And then again, you don't need any citations when it's your own work, your own opinions, words, and thoughts. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to know the difference and be careful not to plagiarize. Because as we talked about before, plagiarism is considered very, very unethical science. And there's lots of unpleasant consequences. And also, I'm pretty good at recognizing it. So take the extra time, put things in your own words. Not only will you learn better, but you'll stay out of trouble. So I'm leaving this slide up a little bit more so you can get everything down and realize that someone else's words, that's the critical one. You have to put a page number. And if it's someone else's thoughts or a statement that's not general knowledge, you have a citation without a page number. Here we go. Just a few more seconds on this. And then I'm going to move to the importance of having an outline. An outline is absolutely, I think, critical for writing a good paper. especially when you're with a group. Why? Is it outline? Well, if you can't articulate your paper in point form, you won't be able to do it once you add in words and sentences and that prose in there. If you do find problems or gaps as you outline, oh, we didn't explain this very well, or we didn't explain that very well, it's easier to fix them from an outline than it is when you've got all these words and sentences and citations. An outline gives you confidence. Nobody likes mental diarrhea, which is kind of what it feels like when you read a paper that somebody hasn't thought out. And outlines make drafting less stressful. They particularly are good when you're working in groups, because the group can get together and agree on a good solid outline and how they want their paper to go and what they want to say where. And then people can break up and work on certain sections of the outline and then put them back together. And so if you have a strong outline starting out, it's much easier to put together different people's sections of the groups. So I highly recommend that technique when you're working with your group. Sit down, get a good outline, look at it, make sure it covers all the points, and then divide it. And then pull it back together. So now how to outline? Well, the first thing is to take a deep breath. As you know, I write a lot myself, and I know the feeling that there is nothing more overwhelming than looking at all these ideas and these references and what you want to say and trying to pull it together in a coherent whole. So the first thing you got to do is relax, take a deep breath. Then try to find classifications for your findings that relate to your thesis or research question. So you can look for common trends. Choose headings and see what falls under each. Think of other ways of grouping that might make equal sense. So for example, in the paper I just wrote about childhood obesity, I looked at the causes for childhood obesity, and I saw our familial causes that go on in the family, and I saw that one was like family beliefs or family behaviors, fat parents, parents that didn't exercise, beliefs about healthy food. And then I noticed that there was another category that was more structural. It was poverty. It was single parent households. It was living in an area with a lot of fast foods. So once I got that in mind, it was really easy to write my paper because I just wrote a section on each one of those causes. And then once you're happy with what you've got, you might find that some sections are strong and fleshed out while others are weaker. So that kind of gives you a clue. What do you need to go to the library to find some more research to answer this part where you're a little weak? Or do you just need to see if two weak sections couldn't be combined and fit under one common heading? So those are some tips. It's not difficult. It's a skill that anyone can learn. And once you learn it, it'll make your writing easier and less stressful, which is pretty much what we want, don't we? So now we're turning to how to outline. What do you want to consider? Well, you want to focus on the purpose of the paper. This is scientific writing, so you're really making an argument in your introductions. You're leading the reader through the facts that support your prediction or hypothesis. You want to think about the audience. This is a scholarly audience, so you want to be very clear and logical with your audience. You don't want to be flowery. I just read a student paper with the word fabulous in it, and I said that wasn't quite right. And then you want to focus on your hypothesis. You're writing to your hypothesis. And in order to do that, you brainstorm, you organize, and you reorder and you label. And this is just an example of an outline that I used in an article I wrote. I was trying to, the purpose of the paper was to talk about relationships between hostility and lipid levels. You can see that I started out talking about the importance of the problem. The heart disease is a leading killer in this country. And I actually had references for that, but I wanted to get people to stay awake, pay attention, and know that what I was going to write about was important. Then I had subsections on how hostility was related to lipids, stress is related to lipids, coping is effective in reducing steps. So I finally came down to my hypothesis that for men that are hostile, coping will mediate between stress and lipids. Or what that really means, that coping will help people deal with stress of being hostile. So therefore, the lipid levels will be lower in men that are good at coping. So you can kind of see how I led through that argument. Now, next, we're going to talk about APA citations. And I think we're just about done here. Phew, because I'm really getting tired of talking. But APA citations are basically, once you've got your references, here's some techniques for talking about them in text. So this is how you talk about it in text. One thing you can do is just include your reference in a paragraph when you need to back up a fact. So here I said the relationship between family and individual political affiliation is well documented in the research literature. How do we know that? Well, we know that Koenig said it in 2002 and Smith and Jones said it in 2003. Notice two things. First of all, that this reference is used to back up a fact. Second of all, I've got two articles in the same parentheses. That's okay. Third, that the articles are in alphabetical order. K goes before S. Fourth, that there's an ampersand between Smith and Jones. When you've got a in the parentheses, you always use an ampersand. And fifth, that there's a semicolon dividing those two references. So that's how it goes when you want to back up a fact. Here's within a sentence, and that's just you're using it's like a conversation. You're using the names of the research to say what they said. So you're kind of including the reference source as an explicit part of your sentence to shake things up a little bit. So Buss and Shackelford, 1999, studied this phenomena in a sample of college students and found that most married couples had similar personality characteristics. So you'll notice that the authors' names are separated by and the article is titled by, their names are followed by the year of the study. So that's how you'd find it in the back. Now here's a direct quote that I talked about. This is something from a book chapter that I wrote last year, and it says, "Kupuna are vital to the continuation of traditional Hawaiian culture." Notice, even though I'm citing myself, it was published by somewhere else, so I had to put that whole sentence in quotes. Then I put the source of the book chapter it was in, that was Yankura and Greenwood, the year 2013, and then the page number. So that page number shows people where they could find that exact sentence if they needed to, if they wanted to check the context. And just as a side note, quotes should be in a separate indented paragraph if they're more than 40 words long. And I'm really, honestly, to tell you the truth, not too fond of a lot of direct quotes. Sometimes you have to because the researcher just said it so well, but I'd much rather have you paraphrase something than use a direct quote. And the reason for that, if you paraphrase it, I know you understand it. So quotes are good and you definitely have to use them, but they're kind of lazy writing. And then the very last thing we're finishing up is what you need. You need a 7 to 9 page paper written as an introduction to a research study. That's what you're going to turn in this week. It should include a review, the purpose of the study, a specific research hypothesis, a reference section, and the paper should be, and the references should be in APA format.